Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Rebel Crone. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Joel the Perceiver, a fantastic man that has led a very alternative and very specific life. And he's going to be sharing with us today some of the wisdom that he has learned and earned through all of his different travels. And when I say travels with Joel, this is going to be mostly travels of the interior travels. And that's what hones us, right? That is what hones us as a person, is that interior work. Well, Joel the Perceiver, he is a personal empowerment mentor and shamanic dreaming arts teacher. Now, some of the things he teaches, and I'm reading a little bit of this as I talk here, is it's awareness training is what it is, along with a lot of shadow work, wound reflection, and integration. And I'm sure we'll go into some of this when we look at the topic today, because it's so important in our personal growth, is that we become aware of all the aspects of us, the higher aspects, excuse me, and the lower aspects. Now, his trainings and his teachings, he does this for individuals and as groups, and it's very transformative. A lot of his work is also done on an energetic level through shamanic movements, the art of see if I can say it, recapitulation, lucid dreaming, and different gazing disciplines. He is just a beautiful man that I feel is very connected to source in a grounded way, and that is so important for any of us that are familiar with the mystical traditions and mystical work. A lot of times we can just travel out there and we can do all this stuff, but it gets us in what we could say like an airy fairyland, very ungrounded. And the beauty about Joel is that this man is firmly planted with 2 feet on the ground. What I like to say is he has balanced the ascension and the descension process, which I think is just pivotal and is vital for us that are still walking the earth right now. Reach for the stars, but bless the planet and be here in these avatars, in this incarnation fully. So, without more chit chat from me, I want to get Joel in on this conversation. Welcome, my friend. It's good to have you. Welcome, my friend. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Elisa. So good to be with you. So glad we got to hang out in Houston together. And yeah, I really appreciate you bringing me on and look forward to discussing all of it.
Yeah, it's so Joel, I'm springing a lot of this on him right now. Um, we had so many fantastic conversations when we were in Houston together, and we got to spend a lot of time, which was fabulous. Um, One of the things he said that kind of didn't throw me off, but it was just like, oh, how interesting. And as a mature woman that's been around for quite a while now, that some kind of a new idea or new way of framing reality, that doesn't often happen, that you can catch me with something like totally new. And we were talking, if the conversation we were involved in, it's something to do with, I think it was the book I was working on, and all the different races and kind of all the challenges happening nowadays with, we could call it the different tribes of humanity. And Joel turned to me and he said, Lisa, as far as the Toltec wisdom, they say there's just 2 tribes of humanity. And it went, 2 tribes. So that's what I would like to have you expound on, Joel, to get started the conversation here, because I think it's like there's so many things that move off of this basic understanding that I think will really elevate our listeners.
Yeah, powerful thing to talk about. Yeah, to say there are only 2 tribes is to say that there's, the races are not what make us different. It's that men and women are the 2 tribes. So the tribe of man and the tribe of woman. And if those 2 tribes could learn to work together, then everything we're doing here we would understand why we've been put in this opportunity. That's where the work lies. And it's really tricky. There's a lot of power dynamics between men and women. There's a lot of pendulum swings that happen throughout time based on the patriarch and the matriarch, and that pendulum has to stop swinging. There has to be a way for us to be able to not be afraid of each other's power and get to know each other's power. and women have an infinite level of energetic power, and they have an advantage in the dreaming layers significantly. And so,
And well, Joe, just one quick. So when you say dreaming layers, to the people that aren't familiar with,
yeah,
Castaneda's work or Toltec things, so would it be fair to say that the dreaming layers would be the layers of connecting to the invisible realms?
yeah, women have a
That
much
might,
more capacity to access their astral body and do the most unique things. Uh, if they can get there, it's not easy to train in these arts, but there are breakthroughs. It's probably harder for women to do this work in the beginning, but once they get there, they have an advantage because it's so natural for them. Where men, they can get to these places more likely because they're more focused.
mm,
And so women are like designed already access everything as just by their mere existence, and men are shaped this way as a means to get to the top of their pyramid and discover their knowledge and claim their position on the top of their life, having achieved everything they came here to do. And women aren't not here to interact that way. That would be, and that's
mm,
what's happened though. Women are in this way of doing things that's keeping them from the true nature of their capacity. And so for a woman to get to that place where she can use her dreaming body to remote view and to travel into other layers of the onion, like to go to sleep and be able to actually witness a place far across the realm and actually be there and smell it. And then these kinds of things are very real in the Native American world. People dream together, they travel together, they latch arms and they get to
mm.
witness the same dream. And that creates such an incredible pure affection between dreamers. And so to be able for men and women to be able to do this work, that's why celibacy and different training comes in at certain stages as a means to be able to move your sexual energy and dreaming energy being one and the same. You'll find ways to be creative with that energy so that you're it's moving throughout your system, and you're able to then place your focus into these other layers of the onion. And if you save that energy or reclaim that energy through recapitulating, your youthful energy comes back to you, and all this imagination that you forgot about becomes available inside of like what people call third eye activities. And it goes beyond third eye activities. It moves into you can relocate and experience, like Carlos Castaneda went to sleep in his bed in Los Angeles and woke up in a bathtub in Tucson, Arizona, because he had a powerful shaman inviting him to wake up to appear through the water. He had the water, and water is a means to transport oneself once you understand the secrets of these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just so many different ways to talk about dreaming, but it's real. It's terrifying how, cut off we are from what we used to be able to do or what Native people still do. And not only Native people, I mean, a Toltec is not someone that was born of a particular lineage. A Toltec is someone that has learned the dreaming arts that the Toltec lineage
Mhm.
discovered a long time ago.
Well, it's really for me, just on a personal note here, and then we'll pull it back towards more principles involving other people. But for me personally, speaking with you, Joel, in Houston was such a oh my God, I think I felt like I talked a lot because it was so nice for me to find another human and in
Mhm.
a male too of somebody that I could talk about as far as I've been like I think a natural dreamer tendency since I was a little girl with out of body traveling and stuff that would just naturally happen in the visions and going different places. So for me, it was just so nice to talk with somebody that actually has studied and understands this, and it's not that I ever thought I was crazy with it. I just thought I was so very alone with it. But enough about me. What I want to go into a little bit here, because you've said so many things I think that are so pertinent and really highlight the challenges we're having nowadays. Because you took it to a very beautiful, mystical place, but just in a practical place of most humans just walking this planet of the two tribes, men and women, is the problem that we have. that they have typically understanding each other and getting along, meshing and merging their sexual desires and energies, creativity. I mean, oh my gosh, that's why I wanted this topic to talk about this, because I feel like it opens up so many doors. In fact, I feel like it's like the key, the
Yeah.
very key about being incarnate right now. But on a big level, you mentioned just about the swings of the pendulum through history, where we've lost the understanding. It's been wiped out from our actual history books and libraries and stuff, the written literature about the matriarchy. So I think we can just kind of we just have little glimpses of what that would have been like, what worked about it, and maybe what didn't work about it. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that because clearly it wasn't a balanced thing because it swung the other way, right? If it was
Yeah.
perfectly balanced, the matriarchy was such a great thing, we wouldn't have had this.
Yeah.
Now we have this. So let's talk a little bit about that first, just as far as in generalities like that. What do you see as far as in the human evolution on this planet, as far as the two races trying to find this balance point?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Toltecs discovered there's an interference that is in place to make sure we don't find the balance. And so it just is very easy to control us just by doing that, right? So there was a time where men were like controlled by women. They were more like, they were the ward and the protector in certain physical worlds, but we were in more energetic layers at the time, and women had an advantage. So according to my elder, there, like the Robert Jordan books, The Wheel of Time, that's a real dynamic where women actually had the ability to come together and have enough power combined that they could, they were using men in a way in which men didn't have a choice, in the way that now often, or you've seen and throughout time, where the patriarch created conditions in which the women were essentially enslaved by the man. And so it's just a really unfortunate reality that we're attempting to try to make sense of, I think, each one of us within our own being. And so the shadow work that you can do with a partner leads to being able to potentially heal that dynamic within your own reality. And the more and more people that can do that, the potential is infinite. But more than likely, it's not going to be the masses that do this work. But still, those of us that do will have it, it'll have a huge effect. Like the 100th monkey thing is a very
Yeah.
real, and courage spreads like wildfire, but so does fear. And our ability to just be aware of this dynamic and find a way to come out of the battle of projecting onto others.
Hmm.
Because when you get in closer with someone, the wounds that you have around, the more vulnerable you become, and therefore the stuff that you didn't know was there surfaces.
Yeah, and gets amplified. People think like there's something wrong with the relationship when the honeymoon phase is over,
Yeah.
whether that's in 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, 7 years, whatever. But that's actually the relationship uh, doing its purpose. That's the purpose of it, is to bring these things up. But we're just, oh, I mean, we could go on in so many different ways with this, Joel, but we're just not trained as humans, just who we are, the nature of who we are. And if we had these basic skills, we would know that when you get in a relationship, we'd be like, oh, great, now I see this in myself. Thank you. Thank you for showing me, and I would work with that. Now, this phase in my life, I'm blessed to do that. I'm blessed to do that because I worked hard for years and years and years. Once I understood this concept that the battles fought within, everything happening to me on the outside, is a reflection of who I am, my own consciousness, and I can change. I change my world by changing me and facing those dragons, fighting those battles. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like there's so like we're handicapped with that. But also I'm encouraged because it is the 100th monkey, it's the tipping point, it's all those different ways phrasing how change happens, and that it's going to happen for humanity. I feel really encouraged with that, but I think what people miss is that it's a long trajectory, because long trajectory through time, but we're in time space, so time's really irrelevant, right? It's just construct that we're working through. But these changes, we're at the very beginning, I feel, of a powerful swing. So we're still going to have a lot of these other forces, these other swaying forces, the ones, the fear mongering, the hate mongering, the division consciousness is still playing out, but it's shifting. So it's definitely shifting. And the more and more of us that do this work that you're talking about, the recapitulation of our lives and our shadows and coming to balance, this is going to happen that much faster. And that's our responsibility after all.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And we get to do it whether we're in relationship or not.
Yeah.
There is material that you can work with that will help you to get to know your wounds,
Yeah.
as much as possible. But there's still going to be things you won't discover unless you are in relationship. And so whether we're in relationship or not, we can be working toward our evolution, as individuals. And Toltecs typically don't have relationships just because of how much time goes into a relationship, and they're actually really busy recapitulating, gazing, exploring other layers, preparing themselves for their death, because they don't look at death as something that's ends things. They look at it as a beginning, an opportunity to really begin a new adventure. And if you really take care of yourself potentially in this realm and learn to self-care in a way that's impeccable, you start to save this energy up that allows you to have an alternative way of dying, which the Toltecs seek as a means to merge with eternity. And if we could do that in large numbers, like the Mayans walked right out of here consciously because of an event that was coming. And we can learn to do that so that we're not so susceptible to the events that may play out in this realm. We potentially be able to join forces and align energies and create what we call human mass. And that has a potential to relocate ourselves for
Nice.
for a period of time.
Well, I'm all into that. That's great. So if as far as like the Toltec perspective and your perspective, when we cross over at the time of our new beginning, the new beginning after we pass from this realm, that is there, because we always hear about in the spiritual realms, and I know that from my own experience that it's not male or female. It's one, I'm me. I am not this or that. That this is, tell me about their perspective about why that plays out in this, in on this, whether it's just this dimension it's playing out, this specific, realm as far as Earth goes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the experience of the Toltecs suggest that men are a recent part of the realm, that it was very feminine and women used to clone themselves. And so babies were born in a totally different means, and that we're in a new territory compared to how long this Earth Mother has been experiencing things in the way that she has. And it's a really difficult thing to do, to introduce this masculine not that women didn't have their masculine aspects as a means to be thriving in the realm of power. And we used to live in a world of power, and we could go into other worlds and we could do all kinds of things. And so power was the only important thing to have. It wasn't whether you had money or people. It was just purely like you had to take care of your power as a means to be okay to handle the abyss and all that comes with being that activated all the time. And so women, bringing men in as the portal, as the door that they open to allow a male child to come in, right, through the sun seeds, that a change came in, and now we're in that new territory of being able to potentially make use of what that leads to. And it's like a bittersweet thing. There's a lot of pain that comes with attempting to learn from each other. And so when you go back into the eternal, you still keep your individuation that you achieved. But for Toltecs, they shapeshift. And so they go from male to female and female to male, because their organs shapeshift and or they shapeshift into animals, or they shapeshift into clouds,
Yeah.
or become.
Yeah, I think if we are, I mean, for me, if we're conceptually, if we are eternal beings,
Yeah,
and creative
yeah,
gods, that of course that's possible. I mean, I remember when I was a little girl feeling I distinctly remember how weird it felt saying that I was a little girl because I was just me. It was like, I'm not a girl, I'm
yeah.
not a boy, I'm me. What are you talking? I mean,
Hmm.
it was just there was like an oddness for it for a while, and then I'm sure I adopted it in and just
Yeah,
accepted it. But I do remember that point when it was just a strange point as far as having that differentiated. Now it's challenging. We see just how the um, the problem with the differentiation, right, is it gets us into smaller boxes of
yeah,
what we can and what we're able to perceive, and it's our own judgments. We live by our own judgments. We put our own bars on our own prison by I'm this, I'm that, by labeling us into narrower spaces, which you see playing out in such a big scale nowadays with young people and their sexuality. It's just gotten narrower and narrower. And I feel like that's another example of putting themselves in their own self-imposed prisons. I hate saying people was like, well, what are you? And they ask me something about myself, and I have to say, well, and I hate to say like I am one thing because then I limit what that thing is. So I
yeah,
also kind of like get caught for a minute, like, okay, how do I want to phrase that in a more expansive way for myself? Because I don't want to be limiting myself through my words and through my concepts. So it's an it's an
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
thing.
yeah. There's a lot of triggers there and a lot of things to look at and get to know, and just to make sense of what is happening right now and why these things are playing out the way they are. And yeah, the need to try and identify in a limited capacity, or be in a group of people that perceives things in a limited way, is just becoming puts you on a team, and then you're against the other team. But it's just so much more nuanced than all that. Like, it's just there's so many energetic explanations that would
Yeah.
solve the riddle of the story, but people don't want the energetic explanation. They're fixated
No.
on being correct.
They don't. That's part of my call to do the Rebel Crone channel.
Yeah.
And I started the new podcast, Wisdom of the Modern Crone. That's part of my call is just, I'm just gonna have to speak, about what I've come to know in life at this age. This is my responsibility. I want to leave something behind when I transition, which I'm completely not afraid of at all. I'm actually kind of excited about that. It's like, what's coming next? But it's so important for us to have it's my personal legacy of being able to talk
Sure.
about the energies and all. And people watch my videos, everything, I come back to like the energy behind things
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
vibrational levels and where you're vibrating in a world will open up to you, a timeline, so to speak, will open up to you depending where you vibrate. And
yeah,
unfortunately, we're seeing now in media that there's a lot of things sorting out, and especially things sorting out between men and women, between the masculine and the feminine, but just on the level of men and women, because the masculine and feminine within us is that other, the other balance. But just in that container, can you speak a little bit about the Toltec point of view of the masculine's role and the feminine's role in a relationship? And in particular, I ask this because there's so many videos coming out right now in regards to Aubrey Marcus and the polyamorous video he did. There's so much pushback about it, and I feel like it's really there's a lot of really great points being made from it. But I would like for you to chime in with that because it's really on point to what we're discussing, and we're seeing that being played out. But I think what people are reacting to is there's an innate sense of violation of the feminine with
mm,
it from the
mm,
masculine. So could you kind of phrase that for us of your perspective on the sacred roles of both those play in ideally in a harmonious balance?
mm. Thank you. Yeah, it's the Toltecs point out to the fact that we are operating from a like just the act of coming together with another. There's a 7-year bond that occurs. Um, so there's no such thing as casual sex, and And that in itself is intense. Like most shamans end up celibate, honestly, because of how of an intense bond that is. You start doing that with more than one person, whether you're in a marriage or not, you're spreading your energy out in a way that's really typically detrimental to the path of freedom. And the only way to be in this time of how cut off we are from, well, there's just so many aspects of hypnosis that are playing out that if you're not in a monogamous situation, then you end up out of honor. There's no way to be in honor in a multiple relationship during this time. I'm not saying it wasn't possible. The Toltecs say there was a time where one of the Nawals, one of the leaders, had 5 female apprentices that were all his wives. But it wasn't, they weren't going to Burning Man and doing drugs together and partying. And it was they were on a team and they were dreaming together in other worlds. And the consummation of their physical bodies probably only happened one time in order for those wives to be with that man.
Mm.
So they weren't like in a normal situation whatsoever. And so there may be a way to return to that capacity. And I believe a powerfully clear group of people could become impeccable enough, but it's so unheard of in this day and age. There's so much interference running and so difficult to reach that state of which you're in such pristine balance. And so it's unfortunate that that comes in prematurely. People do all these drugs and have these visions and they can see the potential for things. And then they grab onto that potential and invite people into their vision. And so the elder I trained with had wives all over the world because he was supposed to have all these children that had all this medicine. And he did. All these kids were very powerful. But it just was a destructive thing for all the women involved. And yet they rose from the phoenix, and some of them are very powerful in that process that they, went through that journey of being that interwoven. So for this to all be in a social media setting is so intense, right? It's just like a slaughterhouse now to be having your personal lives shared in the world. And so to make that decision and then to share it with the
And broadcast it.
world.
Yeah.
And it's needed. It's good that that happens so that everyone can have this conversation. But yeah, it's like I think there's like to be in balance, there's a couple choices like celibacy or monogamy during these days because
This, Joel, and interrupt you, but I relate that how you start the conversation. You were talking about the design of a woman like this and the design of the man. So we put it together and we have this beautiful diamond shape, which is a container, right?
yes,
That's a container for power to move through. It's a solid container. I think it's enough for us right now to build that safety in that container with a man and a woman. Now, if people are so impeccable, like you said, where they can expand that container out and bring more, whether men, women, whatever the design in that is, well, beautiful. But right now, have you mastered this?
exactly. Yeah.
You know,
And you if you start adding people in, you're going to destroy this
yeah,
potential.
there's breaches that's going to happen.
Everyone's going to get so hurt, right? There's just so much pain in the wounding and the unconscious shadow wound. And then the focus being in the genitals, that the energy has to be placed there only. Like that energy is meant to be the fuel that takes us into other realms.
Yeah.
And so people are just hijacked by this attention they have. And so hopefully two people can find a balance in which they're both doing dreaming with that energy together, as well as learning to be powerful lovers. Because you can, the two can combine. You could end up in a really sacred relationship where you can travel with your partner while you're in the act of lovemaking, and you can set intentions. You could do all kinds of incredible things. The Druids claim that sex magic was how wars were won. The
Mm.
most powerful couple in the kingdom would determine whether the war would be victorious for them or the other king and queen. based on how far along they got in their ability to understand the many layers of tantra or whatever you would want to refer to it as. But it's not just exclusive to particular parts of the world. Our awareness of sexual power used to be very profound, and people were very careful back in the day as to whether they conceived or whether they used that energy for other things. Um, and so there's just so much to talk about in the realm of that potential, raising kids in awareness or raising your own inner child. It's just there's our ability to heal and find purpose in this life is pretty critical, and our sexual energy determines our ability to do powerful things, and we want to take care of it and treat it sacredly.
And Jill, if we could like just clarify for people, because I think a lot of time people feel like, oh, there's the consummate as far as sexual intercourse with a person, and then there's this, but there's a spectrum. It's an energetic spectrum of connection. I know you and I, like when we're sitting talking and we're in Houston, we had this beautiful bonding, and it's sexual energies between us. Is it, but that's just part of the juice and the beauty of life of a man and a woman interacting, and it's not a tawdry thing. It's not a debased thing, but it's energy. I mean, this is the energy that moves the world around, right? So could you like reframe that a little bit and open people's awareness that, and also if you could like tie in that 7 year cycle that's initiated, is that were you talking about just through the intercourse?
Yeah.
Um, I should just say down here, it should be up here because that's the pinnacle, and the rest of it is just all the energy expressions in different ways.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have the ability to be aware of our sexual energy, and in tantra everything is sensual. The air, the rain, the snow, like you
Your
know,
food, your
yeah, you're just like in so
yeah.
much affection, and when a man is in balance and a woman is in balance, their friendship can be really powerful. They can build and just move into deep levels of love, and it's magical. It doesn't have to cross over into the physical. And even men and women who are making love don't have to be touching. When you understand how to run that energy, everything starts to just open up, and it's actually more powerful if you can stay there, because then you understand so much more about yourself, and you move beyond that limited version of what it's supposed to be, and you break out of that patterning that humanity's inside of. And that's the real work, is just seeing all the patterns and freeing yourself from as many as you can, carefully and slowly, so that you don't get overwhelmed or get spun out. And so getting grounded is key. And there's a reason why every time penetration occurs, there is a bond that is created, and it's 7 years. So you don't even have to have an ejaculatory experience for that bond to happen. It's just instant upon entry. A man entering a woman, there is these energetic worms, they say, that travel into the woman, and that woman will feel bonded to that man for 7 years, no matter what.
I mean, if, oh my goodness, if women out there listening to this, if you have daughters,
Yeah.
and younger women, please share this with them because this is so important. This is such a line we've been fed, and we want to just talk about evil as far as anti-life, is
Mhm.
this line of the sexual revolution and freedom to do what we want with our bodies. Yes, of course we should have freedom to do what we want with our bodies, but we should know what we're doing with our bodies and what's the repercussion of it. And casual sex for a woman is different. Now, so you talked about with the worm, the sperm, the seed of man going into a woman. What happens for the man? Are they bonded in the same sort of way, or what does that look like for the man when?
Yeah, so the man is connected to that woman as well. And so a lot of men that sleep with a lot of women are feeding off of women, and they have access to their energy all the time because there's so much unconsciousness. So a lot of hot guys out there are just on top of the world, just being lent all this incredible feminine energy.
Mm.
And they just use it to crush and make more money and get more women. And ultimately, they're going to get really lost. But it's a pretty incredible high for a guy to be able to conquer women constantly. And in that way, it's kind of primal.
And especially you look at it, it's younger women that they want to conquer. I feel there's something about a difference in a woman's energy field sexually when she's younger. It goes through changes. I mean, for both parties. I mean, what it took for me to be interested sexually in a man when I was younger to what it would take now is two different worlds. It's completely two different worlds. So I would imagine that's why the choice of younger women, there's the status that there's the young and the beauty, because that's what I adulterize in this world as it is youth as the expression of a woman, which is mostly it's of young women. It's not a woman. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a different beauty with that. So I see how that happens, that there's this vampiric
Mhm.
energy with it. And yeah,
Mm.
I mean, it's just a sad testament to our state of affairs. And then the women that buy into this, then they want something from the man. So it's vampiric on both sides, where I see women that, maybe they're not plugging into the energy, but they're plugging into what they think is the safety, right? They think because he's got more money and he's got worldly power that I'm going to be in this focus contained field and I'm going to get more things for me and more safety and whatever, where it's not. And that's one of the challenges, I think, looking at the Aubrey Marcus video is just uh, it's
Mm.
easy to see. I don't want to like judge it, but what it appears to be on the outside looking at what's being projected, because I
Yeah.
don't know their personal journey with it, but they put it out there. They put it out. It's fair game because it's out there. I would never call out anybody that hasn't put anything out there. They
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
But you just kind of see that dynamic working out. You see the excitement of the purity of this younger woman and that energy,
Yeah.
and how there's this like feeding of him towards that. And we
Mm.
just it just it there you see it all there, and you see it in the face of his wife and just the pain underneath it and the fear. And if you
Yeah.
look at, there's just so much fear and stuff because her container is now getting breached, as
Yeah.
opposed to it being a safe thing where she truly wouldn't have to fight off her. I don't remember if she said like her own demons or whatever, her limitations, and expand herself. Well, expansion isn't, for me, that's, I mean, there is some pain sometimes involved in expansion. The stretching of our borders can be like, oh, it's like a tug going, but it's
Yeah.
not like, there's something different. I don't know if I can put it in words, but do you understand what I'm trying to say, Joel?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really tricky stuff, and it's sad that women attempt to like, once they're aware of what's been done to them by certain men, then they try to get revenge on men by going out and sleeping with a bunch of men. It doesn't work, right? So men and women are different. And how we come into terms with what's going on and the way it's playing out, it's really uncomfortable to get to know. But my elder who had all these wives and all these women, he called it medicine. When a new woman would come in, he'd get new medicine. And these women were literally keeping him alive. So it can get really, really bad. And how do we heal from this is, by becoming aware of like, Aubrey Marcus, how he got started was talking about cross-native stuff and a long time ago. And if it's going to be, hopefully he can correct this, and move back into like a deeper inner journey and less, need to be looking outside of himself for what he's looking for, because he's going to miss out, and he's going to spread himself out. He's already spread out. Like these are really delicate things, money, fame, uh, you know, one marriage is so difficult already if you're being honest and if you've moved past the honeymoon stuff. So why would you move into two? Like how could any person do that in a way that was not in some sort of fantasy reality where the original woman is going to get hurt and then the new woman is going to get hurt eventually, or she's going to hurt
Because
everyone.
she's going to get older too, and
Yeah.
she's going to get drained of whatever that's excitement for him. She'll lose that at some point. It'll transition into something else. Um,
And then the sacred union isn't possible, right? So to be in a sacred union with another is like the greatest thing that could happen. And so often it's kind of that ghost of Christmas past. You go back and look at the decision you made, and it
Mm.
just hurts.
Yeah, I know. We see this playing out in all kinds of different ways right now. But for me, I think this is like a beautiful time to bring the conversation back into the internal work of our own masculine and feminine self, because
Yeah.
that's where it really is rooted in, right?
Mm.
Is with our own balance. And,
Yeah.
I said we can use like my life is like a little touch point on it. I mentioned when I was younger, I always felt like, well, why I'm both. And growing up, had I grown up nowadays, I would have had some kind of label on me, and I would have been stuck into some certain path based on that paradigm label that wouldn't have been genuine.
Well,
It wouldn't have been genuine because as time went on, I started out, created my own businesses as a young woman. I actually supported two marriages with my work, so things are very much in an inverted way for me to really relax and rest into the safety of a man because I was carrying a lot of masculine in me,
yeah.
which is hysterical because I'm super feminine body and avatar. I carry a lot of masculine in me. And it was just up until really a couple years ago where there was just a profound shift with this, like this conscious shift of in dream time is having with both my masculine and feminine self, and the masculine literally stepping back and allowing the feminine to come forward, and that this is your time. And that's when I like fully embraced being a woman, and that this journey, because I picked this female avatar, is to
Well,
really accept
well,
that this is the journey this time. It's
yeah.
to express that because there's other journeys I've had and am
Yeah.
having that I'm in all kinds of whatever, maybe there's something else besides just men and women. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm having all these other experiences. But right now, I chose this. So
Amazing.
let's just
Yes.
work with that.
Mm.
So within me there was this choice of this internal balance. And so now it's been the dance of allowing the container within me, the
Yeah.
container of the feminine beautiful power and expansiveness and dreaming and creativity, to have contained within me that masculine focus. And it shifts every day. I mean, it's a dance within, isn't it? I mean, we find there's these different polarities, but I find it so much easier being a woman now that I've accepted this, and also the buildup of my own personal power. Fine,
Yes.
but and I think this also comes, I mean, this is an age thing too. I'm over 60, this is an age thing, where you become clear on this stuff. It doesn't mean it can't happen when we're younger, but
Yeah. Mhm.
what
Totally.
I've got, yeah, but it's just like this personal power has a chance to build as we have that own container within. And so I see when you're describing how a lot of the Toltecs and a lot of the shamans there choose to be celibate because it's this internal container. I mean, it's just so different than what we're taught, right? This is a whole different dance of beingness.
Yeah, what you're attracted to in like for me, what I'm attracted to in women is what I want to develop within myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't be drawn to it. And I wouldn't be potentially putting it on a pedestal unless it wasn't something I had developed. And so you learn about your wounding or your through your desire, you learn about things that are undeveloped within you just by how arousal occurs within you. And if you're just honest with yourself and you start to learn how to get access to that type of your own power that you see in another. And obviously it's not the same as a man. You're going to develop that feminine energy through different means, like snowboarding in a way that frees up your body, or tapping into like that lighter side of the martial arts where you really get to know the feminine through that type of movement. And then you're not in desperation for that energy from another. You found it within. And then you can find another person who is whole, who's done that themselves. Because a lot of women don't have their masculine and they're just so open and haven't created a container for themselves. And so they're relying on men or buffers or people to support them because they don't have the capacity to take care of themselves. And or a lot of time women move only into the masculine, they cut off their feminine as a mean.
And that we all know is not an attractive thing.
Right.
We see that playing out, women coming into power positions. Is something that my mystic mentor, Elizabeth Serafine, and I talk about a lot. as far as sort of like of a mission in this life is like how can women come into their power and be productive and effective in the world the way it's built without taking on the masculine mantle, because it doesn't work for a woman. She'll be totally drained of all her life force energy. And my mentor, she does do classes in that help rejuvenate and women to bring it. I know you and your partner also do a lot of work in that area because it's a very real thing with women getting tapped out
Mm.
because they're playing the wrong. They don't know how to play the game, let's say the beautiful game of this life and accomplishment and manifesting your dreams and your creativity, but doing it in feminine power. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, what does that look like? Where we just haven't seen that.
Yeah, and it's so uncomfortable to admit to, and then be able to start to catch yourself moving into that masculine drive when you wake up and you start to go out your day. If you could really catch it and open and feel and like literally open your legs and to the wind and to just return to the power center in your body. Like women
Mm,
perceive the world through their womb. You're really feeling the world and you're using, and so do men actually. They feel from the center of their field. We have these long luminous fibers of light that reach out and touch the world. For women, it's differently designed, but we all have this feature. And you discover this when you learn advanced dreaming arts is that there's an incredible capacity to reclaim your power and then walk in your power and then be very careful with your power through self-care and decisions. Every little decision we make determines how much how much energy we will have for different types of experiences. And there's a lot of
it's just there's I don't know if the strenuous is the right word for it, but I feel like even as much as I've done in my life to be where I am today, which is a blessed place. I'm grateful. But every day is like that thing. I wake up and it's like, okay, I feel like, I'm the doing, the human doing as opposed to the human being. And I get like, okay, if I've not accomplished things, why at the end of the day do I feel like, oh, because I haven't accomplished that? And I'm always checking and balancing that. Even to this day, it's this internal constant dance
wow.
of finding that balance. I mean,
Yeah, the Toltecs bring in something called the not doings, and you learn to just break out of the doing, and then that's where the real silence and healing happens. And so you can let some things fall apart at times and not be on top of everything,
yeah.
because there's a need for that human mess as well as that, like it will can be escapism, but when it stops being escapism and you go into the not doing practices, especially for women to rest,
Mm.
to nurture themselves and create really comfortable ways of living so that they're not copying men. It's just like a totally opposite thing. And so finding a circle of women that you can meet with consistently, like what Rachel offers, it's life-changing and it's really deep work and it's not talked about what they do to men. It's very private. And it's very
Mhm.
important at some point that women find women because the women's union dynamic is that most women are competing with each other. And so it's really, if possible, to work through those triggers inside of a circle of women and to speak the truth to how you're feeling and getting vulnerable and honest so that those armor comes off and women stop competing and they start connecting.
Yeah. Yeah, because our strength is in our bond, is in the bond of love between women. And as an older woman, I have beautiful circles of friends. But it's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing because as women get older, not guaranteed, but
Yeah.
when I'm attracted to the women that have gotten older, have transcended all of that. And so I just
And-
love the company of my mature women friends.
Mhm.
It's why I started the Rebel Crone and why I'm doing these interviews, is because I want to really pull out and shine a light on just this incredible wisdom of women and how they think and how they be and all that, and to share it with younger women. So for one thing, they're not afraid of getting older. They look at it as, oh, wow, this is like an incredible journey, and someday I get to be there. how beautiful and exciting. So maybe on that journey, then they can relax a little bit and love their sisters and support their sisters. It
Mhm.
just enhances their world. It doesn't take away from their world. There is, to use the example of the all the stars in heavens, whether you believe they're there or not, but there's a place for all of us to shine. We don't, my shining star is my star. You can't
Yeah.
take it away. I can't take yours away. And if you shine, I mean, it just is so much more
Beautiful.
fun
Yeah.
being alive and being in this world with other shining stars,
Yeah.
with
Oh,
other lights. Oh my goodness gracious. Joe, would you talk to us a little bit, share with everybody like what you do as far as when people come to work with you, or like Rachel's thing, just kind of give people some like what would that look like? How do you handle like a newbie coming in this
yeah,
incredible process of rebalancing?
for sure. Thank you. Yeah. So I do free consultations, and you can find my website, joelschaefer.com, or joel.schaefer on Instagram. And
I'll
uh,
put in the link. I'll put in the link under
yeah.
this. Yeah.
So 30 minutes, a lot can happen, and a lot of healing happens. Usually people start crying, it's a space that's held for processing. And I work with women that help me with my processing, and I'm passing on a lot of the tools that they taught me. But because it's masculine and there's a container that's different, so it can be really effective for women to heal their masculine wounds by working with a man. Um, but I work with men and women, and I do online courses, and we meet 3 times a month. It's really powerful. It's life-changing. We do these shamanic movements together, and we get into really incredible discussions around the Toltec knowledge base. And then I do in-person workshops in Missoula, and I do one-on-one mentoring sessions that are 90 minutes online or in person. And 90 minutes is a long time. We can get a lot done. And especially if we mix some guided meditation and breath work and movements and conversation. But some people just need to vent and process and share and cry, and it's less structured depending on what is needed in each moment. But I've worked with some very, very powerful shamanic teachers for most of my life, and I'm in a place in which I can offer a mirror to people. I can see it's not judgment. I just can see what needs to be addressed because I've worked with so many mirrors myself, and it rubs off. You start to understand the process. So I'm offering that time and space for people to connect in a variety of ways. We'll be meeting in Missoula, Montana, August 2nd and 3rd and 4th. And I'm about to post that all on social media, and send out to everyone's email. So hope you can make it to Missoula. It's a powerful thing to come together and do shamanic movements, and we go out in the wilderness and stuff and connect with the trees and the land.
Would you say, Joel, for somebody like the
Hmm.
work you do is very specific?
Yeah.
It's clear it's not for everybody, but nobody's meant for everybody. We have our own
Yeah.
trajectory, our own area of our own field.
Hmm.
So who
Hmm.
is there a way you could say like who's like how would you be ready? Like,
Yeah,
listen, like,
yeah.
am I ready for Joel's work? Oh, I don't know.
Uh,
Could you give
yeah,
us a
it's
little hint?
actually it's for anyone and everyone in any state. I just offer what the appropriate step from where you're at. So it's not like you have to be advanced or have any understanding of any of it. Um, I'm just a person that you can connect with I'm really good at listening and holding space. And so there doesn't have to be anything other than that if that's what one is ready for. And so I am very intuitive as to what to speak to. So if you're wanting to build your business and you're feeling wishy-washy about certain steps, yeah, I can help you to get, strong. It could be very
And
simple.
clear, clear
Yeah,
and clear and
clear.
strong. Yeah, so that because it's
Yeah. So you're not in
in. Yeah.
manifestation. A lot of people are manifesting, trying to manifest. I teach people how to listen. And then what you really want will be presented to you instead of this idea of what you think you want. And it's a total reframe, and it totally works. And it's necessary at some point to figure this out because our future self is informing us on how to get to where we already are in the most elegant and magical way possible. And so when you acquiesce to things that have already been established for you, You start to
Mm.
receive the abundance of the guidance, and then you're not attached or in fear around anything. And eventually you get this message that everything's going to be okay,
Yeah.
and you're able to relax and trust in that. And then
Yeah.
that trust is what changes everything. It doesn't matter how much one trusts, it doesn't matter how much personal power one has, it's how much they trust their personal power.
Yeah.
And that's a journey in itself, is just the de-armoring that happens when you trust. Because if
Yeah.
you're not in trust and you think everyone's out to get you and the world's closing in on you, then you create that reality and everything speaks to that.
Yeah.
So it's a real profound healing that happens, is that you can get so silent that you get a break from the world.
Mm.
You can move beyond meditation into total repair. And then your eyes get really bright because you've gotten so quiet that you got back to your inner child. And all that light just starts to come back to you. And then now you're like, oh shit, I get to really enjoy this experience. I get to slow time down. I get to have relationship with the earth that is so moving and beautiful, that all these emotions, which is the feminine, the emotional intelligence of a woman is so needed in this time. And not just for women, but for men to have access to that part of their being so that they can unburden themselves with all that pain that most people aren't able to admit to, that's stored inside of them from whatever. It's accumulated, and it really takes courage to get quiet enough to allow it to surface. And I teach breath work, and others do as well, that will help you get to your pain really easily. So it's not like hard to get there. It just takes the courage to reach out to me or you or people that can hold space for, a transformation.
Yeah, and it's just I love what you say. Thank you. That's just beautiful, Joel. And it aligns perfectly with what I know to be true because it is true. It's so often we think of, and I just say it in a different way of that, I just need to grow my little light inside, and there's me out there, and like these two separate spheres of energy, and it's not. We're contained within the sphere of who we truly are. And really the goal is just this beautiful allowing, is learning how to trust and allow it to come in and permeate, and just because that is who you are. All will be well because all is well. It always has been well, in spite of all this stuff we're seeing or whatever's being mirrored back to you in your own personal realm with it. If it's pretty horrific right now, if there's a lot of battling challenges and all of that, that is just a perspective that's coming to you based on where you are vibrating, this where you are perceiving. But there's just, I mean, heaven is right here, if we want to use that word. It's right here, right now, surrounding us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we
Toltec
allow it
saying it.
in?
Yeah, we have this sheen of light that surrounds our toroidal field, and most people's sheen is down at the ankles, the common person in the world. But if you can raise that sheen to go all the way up to the peak, you can learn to be untouched by the interference that runs in this world. And then you get to keep your energy rather than be getting nibbled off, right? And then you just stop being distracted by things because you realize those nibbles add up, and you just stop letting yourself getting fed off on any level. And then you become really powerful, become a force to reckon with. And then you get to interact with the forces, like you start to feel the thunder and the lightning on a different level. You become
Mm.
activated, and you can go into gazing art so deeply that you get to travel even at your lunch break. You could have a normal 9 to 5 job, and you can completely reset your reality just by learning to get silent for those few minutes. So it's infinite, and we're capable creatures, but we've been cut off at the knees, and that we've been lied to about what we are. And it's that reclaiming
Yeah.
of awareness. And it usually doesn't happen until people get to a certain age and they start reflecting. But Toltecs do intervene on, they invite people that are young to learn this work early. So it's available to anyone and everyone. And the younger you are, the greater advantage you have to potentially not age.
Yeah.
Toltecs don't identify with age as a limit. They see it as a contract that most people sign up for, and they refuse to sign that. And so Don Juan was twice as young as Carlos, even though he was twice as old as Carlos.
Mm.
Carlos couldn't keep up with this 90-year-old man in the mountains, and he was 90 and he was 40. And so there's a way to energetically change your physical body through the movements that I teach. They will keep your knees and your hips and your sockets all. It's like you're literally transforming your body to a youthful creature, in it, but it's very real and it takes time. It's not a matter of whether it works or not, it's whether people follow through. And it's not the only way to do it. It's just the only way I'm familiar with.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that about your humble spirit with it. It's beautiful. You are a living testament to the path that the journey you've been on, the path that you've chosen. You're it. You've integrated it. So I just thank you so much, my brother, for all the work that you've done and for sharing it with others. And if you want to give Joel, reach out to him and connect and do that consultation. I did it with him because I was so curious. Who he was a while back, and I'm sure we'll be having some specific work that we'll be doing together in the days to come. I'm sure of that. But I do encourage you to reach out if this is appealing to you. And it's not about yanking you out of your world and you're going to have to go and do some, hibernate or, get a cabin in the woods. And then maybe you will want to, I don't know. But it's
Yeah.
it's about being more of you in your world, bringing more of you into it. And seeing how your world just changes because you are more of you, and knowing it, just seeing that heaven is right there, that the peace and the beauty of life and the harmony of nature and communion with fellow souls is like right there. It's that shift of perspective, and sometimes we need help, right?
Yes.
Sometimes a lot of times.
Yeah, I did. I had to raise my hand and say, I don't know what to do. And I found really
Yeah.
powerful people to help me, and if I waited for a perfect person, then I would have never worked with anyone, right? Because there's nobody out there that's perfect. So it's about following your signs and omens and guidance as to who to work with in your life. And there are
Yeah.
helpful. I can introduce you to others if you would like a woman, or there's just different ways to do this
Yeah.
work. So Rachel's offerings are profound, a little more confronting because most women, are still caught in information. And what Rachel does is take everyone out of all of it and just into feelings. It's very somatic and very confronting, but it's super worth being able to do eventually for both men and women. And Rachel does work with men, in that respect, one-on-one, not in the group setting, but yeah, lots of options.
Well, I'm telling you, there is whatever you can do to fill the glass of your being up as you participate in the aging contract in this world until you can transcend that is so important. It is so, so important because I mean, we all know people that have gotten older and they haven't, stepped into their wisdom years, and it's a tough place to be. And we're all going in that trajectory. But you can get older and you can embrace wisdom. And for women, that I can speak of, it's not what we think of as typically what's portrayed at all. I meant it's been a different journey, but there's something very poignant and very powerful, and just truth sayers and truth beers. A woman in her power in her age is a great thing. I have to come back around that because I am the Rebel Crone, and Crone is that crowning glory in a woman's life, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And sometimes we need men to help us, to show us, and to heal that part, that's been wounded in us, to let go of that, and vice versa. Anyways, I'm going to just stop talking about this because I think the points have been beautifully made by my friend here. And I'm going to put all the links if you care to get a hold of Joel. You'll have my email and all. I'm easy to get a hold of. I look forward to having you reach out and connect with me as well. And thank you so much, Joel. Thank you for coming here today and just sharing who you are and your beautiful magic, your magic and power. And I appreciate it deeply.
You're so welcome. I really appreciate you embodying what it means to be a crone in this time and to be willing to shine your light and not dim it. as it gives people permission to do the same, you know, and a lot of women have dimmed their light because of the attention and the confusion that they have around that attention. So it's really embodied healing that you are presenting to us by sharing your wisdom and power in this way. It's really good to,
Thank you very much. I'm just being me and
yeah,
sharing it. Anyway, so I'm going to sign off as I always do, and that's peace from within, because that's where it all begins and actually all ends. So have a
beautiful.
beautiful day, everybody.
So thank you, Lisa.